What's up, everybody? It's that time again. We are here for another special, amazing program on ColumbusBlack.com's Facebook page, going live with you all today. I'm excited for this new show, right? And what this is all about today is what we call the BECOSYSTEM, right? And I want to welcome you all to join us today because of the fact that we're going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart and near and dear to each of the panelists that are here with us today. It is in regards to the Black and Brown ecosystem. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that is, right? I think many of you know, especially those that are here in Columbus, Ohio, have seen the emerging companies that we have here, some of the unicorns that have come out of Columbus from a startup perspective. There's a significant amount of growth that's happening. And if you look around the country, we all know technology is where it's all at. Well, the thing about that is that when you look at all the numbers, you look at the data, you look at the stats, when you look at it disproportionately, we are not as engaged or as involved or as supported in this particular ecosystem, right? So one of the things that's been happening is with the evolution of everything that's taken place, our enlightenment in this space, as people are acknowledging the gaps that exist, a number of us have become very aware and abreast of the challenges, but have made the decision to create an ecosystem. We're going to talk about that Black and Brown ecosystem specifically, which we call at Columbus Black the BECOSYSTEM. All right. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, the cool part is I have some amazing startup founders that are with me today that we're going to learn a lot about. And I'm sure that you all are going to get something from this show. You always take away at least one thing. I know that today I'm going to be doing a lot of these. For those that have watched my show before, you know what that means. Those are gem drops. Every time they drop a gem, you're going to see me doing this. I expect today is going to be like a workout, right? Just because of who we have on the show. So with that being said, for those that don't know a little bit about Columbus Black, we've been around for 15 years. We're an omni-channel platform connecting the community to commerce and to culture. We do that through our website, email blast, text blast, our social media platforms prior to COVID through our live events. But then now we do a lot of virtual events, which is why we're here with you all today, tied to the programming that we just launched last week, well, earlier this week on Monday, where on Monday we did Matchmaker Mondays. On Tuesdays, we did Talent Tuesdays, a virtual discussion with companies and talking about their culture and career opportunities. Tuesday night in the midnight hour, where you could get that word. You know, people struggle at night getting through to the next day. So we had a word with Pastor Debbie Staples in the midnight hour. Wednesday was Wellness Wednesdays. We had Jasper Person on the line. And by the way, I forgot to mention Blair Nash did Matchmaker Mondays. And then on Thursday, we did Throwback Thursday, Support Black Business Series with Dante Wood Spikes, who's an artist here in our local market. And we also had Otto Beta III on that show. And then Friday, we did Foodie-licious Fridays with Sully, Adrian Sullivan of Sully's Kitchen. Let me tell you, if you did not see that last night and you want something really good to eat, you need to check that out. It's on our Facebook page or on ColumbusBlack.com. You can go to the website. And now on Saturday, we wrap up this amazing week of programming with the BECOSYSTEM. And y'all are going to understand why this is going to be a phenomenal wrap up to the weekend. So with that being said, that's who we are. Make sure you check us out at ColumbusBlack.com. Like us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And stay tuned for everything else we have going on. But now we're going to switch gears because I want you all to learn a little bit more about this amazing panel that we have today. With that being started, why don't we go ahead and kick it off? You know, one of the things that I've learned over time, no matter how I try to do it, it always comes back to making sure that we actually start with ladies first, right? So I'm gonna give it to I think Dr. Rachel Angel, right? Because we're gonna go in alphabetical order, Angel, right? And that's such a wonderful name. So why don't we go with Dr. Angel, Rachel? Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your business at a high level, and then we're gonna come back. We're gonna end up going a little bit deeper.
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. One, for introducing me, and then additionally providing this platform that I think is super necessary as people get really serious about starting their own business, going into startup, anything that you're interested in doing. It's really important to have these opportunities to get in touch and in contact with people that may have done it at these different levels. So thank you for that. And then as far as me, I started a startup called Puro some years back, and we've completed our seed round. Up to this point, we've raised about $1.3 million. What we're all about is developing applications that allow individuals to enter into employment at the earliest point, and then guiding them to how to get to a livable wage opportunity. And furthermore, what we've done for companies by doing this is be able to become predictive in data about workforce and allowing them to kind of make these changes and pivots based off of the data that they look at 6 months, a year, 5 years from now. So that's high level what we do. And if you have any other questions, let me know.
Outstanding, very innovative. Now, here's the cool part is I want you to just get ready for this because we're going to come back to it. Yeah. There are people that's going to hear what you just said, and they're going to be like, oh, wow, that's cool. Now, I've known you for a little while, so I know it didn't start this way. Right. We want them to understand a little bit of that story. So we're going to come back to that story after we make our rounds, all right? All right. So with that, absolutely. With that being said, let's go on to Tia Ramey.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for having me on. I'm Tia Ramey, and I am a marketing and communications professional that is specialized in outreach initiatives for especially Black and Brown people who've had a great time with just figuring out how to connect with people and bring civic engagement to the forefront. In my company, we developed an app called the PMPK app that connects users to civic engagement topics and actions, things they can take. We're kind of on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but we'll be ramping up for the primaries really soon. So it's a nice, simple way that you can find out what's going on in Columbus and find out what your place is and how to get involved. And my favorite part about it is allows you to leave reviews for our leadership and let us know who you think is most effective. So I would definitely encourage you to go to the App Store and download the PMPK app at pmpkapp.com so we can get you connected. But I, in a nutshell, am an addictive problem solver, and I love figuring out how to solve big problems through communication and marketing. So thank you again for having me, and I'm looking forward to being with this amazing panel today.
Outstanding, and thank you, Tia. Thank you for coming back on the show. You've been a participant and a panelist a number of times now, and we appreciate the value that you always bring to the table. I look forward to being able to talk a little bit more about your product or your platform that you developed, especially in light of all that has happened. Like, this is such a revolutionary time for us, and I think the innovation of what you put together is just so aligned with that time as well. We just need to make sure we are embracing it and using it the right way. So thank you for that introduction. All right. So why don't we go to Jerry Valentine, and then we're gonna wrap up with Brandon Jones, first and last name. That's an inside joke. He gets it though.
Appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you for reaching out and having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure, and then you put me on a panel with a lot of good people. So thank you for that. For those who don't know, my name is Jerry Valentine. I'm the founder and CEO of a social enterprise company called Renter. We are a tech company that helps connect people to affordable housing. We offer a platform that provides a more secure, centralized, and automated way to list, manage, and find affordable housing. Essentially, our services assist landlords and tenants through housing processes and provides them accesses to needed supportive services. I've started this business. We just entered our first full year officially as an established business here in Ohio. But I came out of kind of the startup space in 2019 when I first pitched this idea at Give Back Hack, and kind of things kind of propelled from there. So definitely a up and coming and emerging startup company, but we do have two kind of offerings that we're working with right now. So we have kind of the consultant services, where I work directly with property owners and landlords, providing compliance and supportive services, helping them through different processes like the Section 8 or rapid rehousing, dealing with the shelter board. And we are working on that platform, which is essentially a multi-listing platform. So something similar to a Zillow or a HotPads that is particularly for the affordable housing demographic. So when I say affordable housing, I'm not thinking of a particular house, I'm thinking more of a particular demographic. So people who have Section 8 vouchers, people who are just as involved in coming back into civilization and need housing, people in shelter, people with eviction. So all those things, all those people really require a special search to help them narrow down and connect to property owners who accept their subsidy or can deal with their situation. So that is essentially why we started our social enterprise. So thank you for having me again, and I'm interested and happy to be a part of this conversation.
Outstanding, outstanding, outstanding. And welcome back to our show. We've had an opportunity to also have you on the show before, Jerry, and you and your team, and have watched you evolve and watched you grow, and excited for what you all are doing and the impact that that has on our community. So thank you so much for being here. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon Jones to share a little bit about himself and what he's working on as well.
Yeah, as always, thanks, Kevin Lloyd. I'm Brandon Jones, co-founder of Black Hack. Consider myself a disruptor, a hustler, a hacker, doing what I can to help build out a Black and Brown ecosystem statewide for Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. Been in this work since 2016. Just doing what I can to move people forward, making sure the resources and tools are in place so that way we can be successful throughout the journey of building startups and small businesses. Black Hack is one part of that ecosystem as an ESO, awareness and education through events and just connections and connecting dots. And then you have Venture Suite, which is our co-working space, which for us is our next part of the foundation, just having a home. For us, we were homeless for 4 or 5 years, not being able to afford office space, co-working memberships, and just wanting to make sure, just like Jerry mentioned, having that affordable housing for entrepreneurs and hustlers like ourselves. And then the next part of that is just making sure that once you get that introduction and then you do have a home, it's now, can I have skills to further myself professionally or as a business and startup? So Color Code Labs is another organization I'm a part of, standing that up. That's workforce development for Black and Brown people breaking into tech. And then the next part is Venture Combine, which is making sure that small businesses and entrepreneurs have the resources to get their idea from brain to napkin to pitch deck to investor. And then from there, kind of building out your concept, building out your market and finding users and customers, and then getting to the next level scale. So for us, that's what an ecosystem looks like. That's been my part of work for the last 4 or 5 years. We are finally at phase 2 and 3 of building that out. And then just looking forward to the conversation and doing what I can to kind of make that successful.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you, Brandon, for that overview. Sounds like a lot of really, really cool and exciting things, right? So do me a favor, we're going to stay on you for 1 minute, and then we're going to go back, because I think what you're working on really helps to support our other panelists, right? From a holistic perspective. So why is this ecosystem, right? The BECOSYSTEM, why is it so important? Why is it relevant? Why is it important?
It's important because there needs to be a roadmap. We say it all the time. I mean, there almost needs to be an outline of just straight cheat codes, getting you directly to the answers. A lot of people in the startup space, we hear it all the time. You don't know what you don't know. And then there needs to be a starting point for that. And then so when you look at different industries, you look at different markets, the ones that you see all the time where you're hearing about all these unicorns, all the success stories of small businesses, there is an ecosystem that exists. And that is whether, I mean, this stuff gets very political, very quick. It's all relationship based. It's all network based. So it's all intertwined, and you have to learn how to navigate that in order to be successful. And that's whether that's a professional career, if you just want to be a chief of something at someone else's company, it's learning how to navigate those politics, it's learning how to build those relationships and leverage all of those things. And then so all of those things are important. It's the DNA of being successful. And so for us, when we look at what that looks like for Black and Brown folks, we see and we saw that there was not an ecosystem for us to navigate. There was not a blueprint framework set up. There were no cheat codes for us to follow in behind. People were able to point us in one direction, and then after that, it was kind of a dead end. So for us, we needed to kind of build out what the rest of that looked like for everybody else to follow. You know, some cases you kind of leave a trail of pebbles or fruit snacks. In some instances, before we got here, people left the trail, and the people that were following ate those fruit snacks or picked them up, and then we did not have a trail to follow. So we wanted to make sure that our trail and our framework was visible and it's statewide. So.
All right. Hey, listen, so first of all, thank you for breaking that down. I was holding back on the gem drops because it was so good. I was listening intently, but I couldn't help it at the end, right? Like, I just couldn't help it. So really nice job sharing that perspective. So what I want to do is I want to go back to Rachel. So Rachel, I know I wanted to understand a little bit about your story, right? And how you got to where you are. But before we go there, would you like to piggyback on what he just shared about the ecosystem, the need for the Black and Brown ecosystem? Because I think you've had some experiences that align with what's being provided.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. So what I think people have to understand is that, you know, when we look at startup, we got to raise capital. That's all we think about. We got to raise capital. And that's true. But the same issues that you're going to run into with raising capital, you'll run into it with trying to identify customers. You'll run into it with trying to enter into a new market. There are so many opportunities for you to have that same experience. And so when you talk about an ecosystem, you're really talking about a number of different experiences, and what are those experiences going to be like, and making sure that we're creating an environment that is right for growth. So like if I could put a seed in the ground, but if I don't have the sun, if I don't have all these things that are going to help it grow, it's not going to grow. And that's happened quite a bit with Black and Brown companies or startups or even ideas. They often die because they're in an environment that's not appropriate for it to grow. So access to capital is one thing, access to the connections and the relationships, understanding how to talk to these individuals in their language. I mean, there is so much that goes into this that often with our counterpart, they've been introduced to it earlier on, or they had an uncle or a cousin or their dad was a part of an organization, and that company was willing to take a risk on you. And so us as African Americans, we're always looking for something that may just automatically come to others. And so we have to create an ecosystem, in many ways, a stronger one than others. So that's my position.
Wow. I was doing a few of them, but listen, y'all, those were powerful gem drops, right? And it's also real. So there's such a need for what's being created and what we're doing. And I agree with you that it's so holistic, right? We can't look at one aspect of it. An ecosystem is truly like the entire system. You need every component in order for it to work the right way. So thank you for sharing that nugget. Jerry, would you like to jump in on that at all? Because you've obviously had to deal with it. As they mentioned, the relationships in the sales piece, right? Because you and I had a recent conversation where you think about that pipeline and then the support to help you get that pipeline. Anything you want to share as well to add on to that?
For sure. Something that I'm living, at this moment right now and in a good space, but, things of like, working out equity deals and technical partnerships and things like that, being able to have resources and go to people that, not only can give you advice just from being a entrepreneur themselves, but actually someone who's been a technical entrepreneur, because it is different in terms of just some of the things that you just have to know and be aware of. And I think that's outside of access to capital, our biggest kind of struggle in this startup space is the fact that we lack expertise in terms of having, the cybersecurities, the developers, that we need to really understand these processes before, instead of just giving our money away to folks and not knowing what they're doing with it. So there's a huge education gap that I feel like the Black ecosystem has definitely been there for me, right now. And I hope that we continue to build on this, because it's hard to keep going to the same, 4 or 5 folks. And I know that there's more of us out there, that we just need a more centralized way. So I do appreciate Black Hack and everyone else that is, championing these efforts to centralize our resources, because that's what we need, is centralization of where, you know, our fountain is leaking.
Wow. Wow. Gems being dropped so heavy, y'all. And this is real because these entrepreneurs are literally going through the process, right? So they're seeing firsthand what the gaps are in the need. So now, Tia, I want to come to you on this same topic because you've been able to obviously work on your project, but you have a statewide scope and perspective due to some of your experiences as well tied to this ecosystem. So would you like to share any additional insight or thoughts around the need for it and or anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I would definitely say there's most certainly a need for it, and I'm a product of it. And I think that one thing that you do need to know when developing an ecosystem is that you have to really be a part of that. You can't go into it wanting an ecosystem. You have to come into it being a part of it, a contribution to it, and understanding what your role is and helping it succeed. It's not something that you do with the mind of instant gratification, but you have to find yourself in a place of seeing, you know, that we're all growing, and then how can we grow together? I like to call them study halls. I still have one. So my ecosystem that I developed, you know, I've gone to Black Hack, I've been to a lot of these events, and you find that those worlds are much smaller than you think, even on a statewide perspective, especially amongst Black people, that we all tend to know each other one way or another. And if we don't know each other, we're really just about one connection away. Even on a state level. So it's a small world, which can be very powerful. And sometimes it's helpful for it to be small. And then we have these spaces where we do need to be patient with one another. I think that I've seen a lot of us be so hard on each other in our growing process. We tolerate so much from some white corporate companies, and then we're so hard on each other if some of our Black businesses that we're trying to grow do not have every single T crossed and every I dotted. And that's important to understand what you're contributing to something. And I'll just give a brief example of, you know, 8 years ago, I started collaborating with contractors who are in the marketing and communications world. And as they were growing, as we all were growing and gaining contracts, we decided to collaborate. So now I work as a senior VP with Gail Saunders at the Saunders PR Group. She said, hey, I can't offer you health insurance right now. I get that. Your company is growing, so that's fine. There's hours that I have to put in sometime that we're not necessarily getting paid for because we're trying to get work. You know, we forget that there's an entire assembly line from getting work, building relationships, writing up contracts, submitting those proposals, sitting in meetings, coming up with the estimates. There's a lot of time that goes into that. So, but there's a bigger picture. So if you can keep that bigger picture in mind, you can protect the ecosystem, you can be the ecosystem, you can contribute to it, keep it moving, flowing, growing. Even my experience at the state level was being able to be a part of a small Black ecosystem. And when that person grew, they took me with them. And that's what it's all about. It's just, can you go with me? And those sacrifices you make at the beginning is what qualifies you to move forward with those people once they make it. You know, you remember each other and you look out for each other. So I want to make sure that I say that because, you know, don't jump into it, figure out what you can take. It's like those networking events where you just want to meet people and no one walks away with any sales because everyone has the same thing in mind. It's like, what can we do here to contribute? And that's what that ecosystem is all about. I have a huge testimony for it, and I love it. I'm a supporter of it, and I do whatever I can to be a part of helping those things grow.
Outstanding, outstanding. Mad gems being dropped all over the place. So listen, now I think all of you all understand why we have this specific group on with us, especially for our kickoff inaugural show of the BECOSYSTEM, right? They are a part of and living the ecosystem. So here's the cool part, right? And I think Brandon will attest to this is with this ecosystem, I think some people look at it, and as we say, and I put on the flyer and our messaging, the founders of the Black and Brown ecosystem, right? Why? Because guess what? It's like we're coining it and saying this is what we need to do. And it all started, you know, here locally for us with, you know, Black Hack with Brandon and Bruce coming together and saying we're going to have these events, and it grew over the years. But what we've learned, and I think he may share too, is that it requires all of us, which goes back to what was just said. Like we are all a part of the ecosystem. So even though we may focus on tech, there's another component of the ecosystem. So for instance, we talk about yoga all the time, and he's on the fashion side, right? And we have people like Jasper on the education side, right? And we got the housing piece with Jerry on that side of it, right? So, and Rachel dealing with the whole workforce side as well, and T on the political side. That's the ecosystem. And we all play in these different lanes, but we have to work together and understand who we are, how we can help each other and build. And then that unified front allows us to leverage the resources, the capital. We create influence, we create power, and we create successful companies. Why? Because we have the aptitude. I say we're a brilliant people. I say it all the time. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox right now, and I'm gonna move back. We're going back to Rachel. So Rachel, I want you to understand, right, especially probably your evolution, right, of, and by the way, we're going to come to the others on this too, because I think everybody's iterated and evolved. When you started Payroll to where you are now, can you walk us through what it used to look like and what you were focused on doing versus the way you would describe your company now? If you could break that down for us, and then maybe what helped you shift to get where you are now?
You know, that's a tough one because you really never know where you start. But I think from a mindset standpoint, my first thought when I wanted to create something was create a product. And I think that was one of the biggest mistakes that I could have made. One is that there's a lot of things that go into really understanding what you're trying to build. And I think I just went into, let's build a product. You know, you want to bring it to life. But I think there's a lot of education and things that, you know, financials, understanding the business, you know, that need to happen before you ever physically produce anything. And so I think it was a learning there. So and I'll say this, as like being an African-American, you start to become aware of all of the woes or the inequalities, I guess, in every space, right? And so what I think I made a mistake, and I think many could make this mistake, is believing that the number one and the only reason that you haven't progressed to where you need to be is because there is challenges because my skin is a different color, you know, and it's not always the case. Sometimes we actually just don't know. And there's a period where we need to learn and educate ourselves. And unfortunately, it just is kind of the experience, the Black experience, often, not all the time, but we are brought up even in our childhood with less exposure, less understanding of how to start a business, how to run a business. You know, it amazes me how many people start a business without creating financials first, to understanding how the money flows. And so you don't have to create a product to understand how your money flows throughout, you know, and really have a clear understanding of how you're going to progress to the next level. So I would say in the beginning, I was in a rush to create a product before I understood my business. And that was a mistake. And it's not always because the world is against you. Sometimes you just need to sit down and read a book or ask the right question. So that's the first part of it. The next is that once I started to humble myself a bit and really start to learn and reach out to the network, I actually met with Bruce Jones, was his Brandon's brother. And then eventually I got in touch with Brandon. They started connecting me. And then there were other individuals along the way that really pushed to help connect me through. So you really got to develop your relationship building skills. And I don't care if they're 3 degrees away from the person that you need to contact or need to be in contact with. You just start with that person and you just move your way up until you get to where you need to be. And unfortunately for African Americans or brown people, that starts we kind of start a little bit further away from the pole. So we've got to, you know, we just got to take every inch and go and build those relationships. And so, you know, from that relationship building, I got introduced to my first investors, which were Rev One. And from that, there were milestones that we needed to hit. And it's still relationship building with trying to get traction, build customers. And then, you know, I was able to bring in another investor. And then our third investor, which was Cincy Tech in Cincinnati. And here we are today. That's kind of the quick version of it. But I guess from that learning, what I have to say that we all have to develop a balance of recognizing when our skills are not matching our expectations and working on that.
Ooh, powerful, powerful gem drops. That's so real because that's that look in the mirror and be accountable, right? And also it sounds like some listening. So listen, I'm gonna share something real quick before we move on. Is you don't get to deliver a message like that without growing significantly. Let's just be real, y'all, right? I spent 25 years as an executive leader. That right there is nothing but growth coming through to you all. That's real talk. If you didn't take anything away from that, I want you to just take a breath. I want you to hit the rewind button, and I want you to listen again, because there's no way you walk away from that message and don't say, I need to take a closer look. It may not be them, it may be me, and I need to listen, check myself, and keep on going, right? Don't stop, keep on going. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing that. So Jerry, same thing with you. So renter mentor, right? Now you ended up talking about one of the gaps that we have as it ties to not really having an ecosystem in the past is the mentorship piece, right? Like not having that person to lean on. And obviously you have a company called Renter Mentor, right? So walk us through real quick the growth as well that you've had to go through as you progress through your model.
Kevin, that's a great question, and one that came in coming with a lot of hard hits. So like how I spoke earlier on, my idea really came to life first through a pitch competition. And that pitch competition, ended up giving me some seed money, some resources, and propelling me into an accelerator that led to some more seed money and some more resources. And it really, within about a 2.5 months time period of literally just my idea, in my head, pen and paper, that's all I had. I was able to form a team. I was able to get, a decent amount of startup money, at least more than I ever had to start a business. And I'll say I accelerated pretty quickly. But with acceleration, you skip a few steps. You skip a lot of steps where, like I said, I was an idea and I was still just an idea, having these, real grown up, real business conversations with folks. And it's like, wait, we're not even an established business yet. We haven't, done any of that stuff yet.
Break it down, Jerry. Real talk. Break it down.
Y'all want me to, your expectations, the ecosystem expectations was so high. And when you accelerate that quick, and you get because of course we are addressing one of the popular topic, not just in Columbus, but just in the nation in general with affordable housing. It was a lot of traction, and we got, like I said, we accelerated a lot quicker than what we really needed to do. So the first thing was to kind of step back, relook at, okay, our validations that we learned through the accelerators and the startup competition, and what did we learn there, and how can we start making money first? That was my first thing. And we went from this whole web, I was so stuck on, I need an app. We got to get this app. And I thought, once we won the initial money, that let's build it out. We ready to go Uber, let's build it out. And the money, it was not a lot of money to do that. And, luckily the blessing about going through those type of programs, accelerators and hackathons was that it did come with some initial resources that followed that was like, hey, you need to break it down. You got to go back. You got to do this. Don't spend your money on development, wireframe things out. So we started off with literally low fidelity wireframes of what we thought, needed to be, what it needed to look like, what it needed to say. And then we put that in front of potential customers and then our end users, which is tenants and landlords. And then that wireframe then progressed to a wireframe that actually was, you could touch it, but it wasn't coded out. It was an InDesign website is what they call it. So it actually pulls up like a regular application, would, and it walks, when you touch start or log in, it'll take you to a register page, and that is to get more feedback and validation. Then it wasn't really until COVID happened where I was able to get some developers that had some time to lean in and give to me because I couldn't afford them. And we started, the back end and learning about that. And now you see the website at rentermentor.net, which it may not seem much to people, but it's a lot going on back there. you know, and it's still progressing. And, you know, so going from, like I said, this idea of this needs to be a application to, all right, well, how are we making money right now with starting consulting services? I think I rambled over that, but that was, you know, the real reason of was like why I was able to get out of my seat at the housing authority was I can do consulting services manually, learn these processes to better the technology, and you know, adding a component to your business, doing it manually, and refining what the technology needs was, and you know, slowly but surely bringing the product to life. So
Nice.
it's definitely not a sprint, which I thought that it was. I thought I was doing 100. It's definitely the 400 relay, and I'm, you know, we just only on our second lap. So
All right.
we're coming. So
there you go. Coming around that curve, baby. Y'all better watch out. Here they go. Now that is awesome, y'all. So a bunch of gem drops going on in there. So listen, y'all, like that one is one of those situations where similar to Rachel, right? Experiences, like going through it, like you could tell some bumping of the heads, right? On that glass, it seems clear, right? You bump your head, oh, get it back together, keep on going. Some serious learnings there, man. I appreciate you sharing it so well for us and our audience to listen to that. There are a lot of startup founders out there right now, or people that are thinking about startup. I'm telling you some words of wisdom right here, some gems being dropped. Pay attention, y'all. So with that, listen, I know that Brandon, the whole time I'm listening to these two, right? I'm like, okay, he's got to be getting ready to drop some stuff because it's a lot of why you're doing a lot of what you're doing, right? So we're going to come to you in a minute. But Tia's been over there. She's been waiting. So Tia, walk us through, piggyback on some of that, right? But walk us through same thing, right? Like you came up with an idea at one place, but now think about where we are now and how you're leveraging that and the importance of it at this point and what maybe some of your learnings have been during that time.
Yeah, you know what? I think that because I've worked also, you know, as a marketer and as an advisor and a consultant to so many different small businesses, one thing I've learned is that sometimes we can focus so hard on what we want something to be that we can't see what it is. And, you know, and that's why it's so important to measure as you go, you know, and I always think of it as like raising a child. And that's how I've seen just even building a business. There's a point where, you know, your child is this baby and you're trying to pour information into it according to what you know. But then there's this point where your child is telling you who they are. And you have to really respect that, to say, okay, what is this now? And what makes this special? And how is this distinguishing for me? And I think that that's where a lot of businesses or even projects tend to fail because you don't understand your business. You're trying to control the process. And there's a place where people are letting you know where you're special and how you're really solving their problem. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you. And if you can let yourself go and let that business and that process be what it is, you get a chance to really see what makes it special. And I think that one thing I've learned about myself along the way as an entrepreneur, even developing projects, is that I invest at the beginning of a process. And there's a part where, you know, everyone's not good at the beginning. Some people do that analysis paralysis, and they can spin and do all these ideas, but they never pull the trigger. So you need those people who are idea people right there at the beginning that can move it along. They're not so focused on the details. They're like, let's go with what we got and move it forward. And then there are people who are great at the end of the process. And that's where it gets a little bit more administrative, and those systems have been put in place. So that way someone can pick it up and carry it on and start to fine tune. I am extremely bored at the end of a process. Once it becomes administrative, I'm not good there. So sometimes clients come to me and they've built a whole business. They have a marketing department. They want me to fit into that. That's not where I want to be. I want to help you create that process from start to finish and then hand it off to someone to work the process. So I think it's so important that you document what makes you special. Make sure you're asking for feedback. Make sure you're asking for reviews. Do not be a person that is afraid of criticism, because I really think that that's detrimental to your growth process and being able to understand what is the value add that you have as you're building your company and you're building your business. And I learned I'm good at the beginning. That's me. I've done surveys. I do testimonials. And again, I'm a marketer. So people, when you hear marketing, they always think of advertising. They always think of pretty pictures and logos and colors and branding. And marketing means I am art made measurable. That's how I like to see it. My job is to make sure that those colors and branding and messaging and flyers and pictures are resonate. So my job is to create a system that allows that to be measurable so we can see what's working and what's not. And if you're afraid to hear what those numbers are because you're so focused on what you want it to be, then you never, and my saying is go where the grace is. You never get a chance to go with what it is and the audience that it does resonate with. Maybe it's not who you think they are. Maybe the users are different. What I found with my app, that the real value I added was collaborating with nonprofits who were already doing that work of civic engagement and giving them a technological tool that they can use to connect faster and easier. So instead of being an app, we became a white label company. We build it, you stick your name on it, and I move on. Beginning of the process. That's how we do things now. So you take it over, you add the details in, but I'm that person that pulls the trigger, but I'm going to leave you with the weapon and I'm going to keep moving. That's me. So I've learned that about myself, and I'll always try to advise anyone that I consult with to let's measure and find out what really makes you special, because there's a very big difference between being valuable and just being expensive. You have to really know what the value is, of where you fit in. And once you know your value, then you know what you can charge. That's a whole other conversation, but know what makes you different.
Wow. I'm just going to keep dropping it, y'all. Each one of them. I told you I was going to get a workout today. Every one of them just got me working out. Tia, thank you so much for dropping that. That is so critically important. That whole know who you are, like, that's so serious. You know, I'm going to go back for a second. When Rachel was talking, I kind of, if I summed it up, I said, you know, there's a lot of growing there. You need to look in the mirror, right? Like, what's going on with me? And then you listen to Tia, and it's the same thing of like, know who you are. Like, look, who are you, right? And give yourself the opportunity to see who you are. So critically important. Some depth to what y'all are hearing here, right? So with that being said, Brand, we're coming to you, right? Same situation, right? Think about where you are today. Think about what your initial thoughts were, what we're creating, and what you were working on, the vision that you had then. And what did you have to go through to get there? What's some of the learning, some of the pivoting, all that good stuff? Break it down for us.
Man, I went through what we would consider hell on earth, just based on personal journey. But I'm sure it wasn't that bad. You know, we're here, we made it. And so in hindsight, it's just being appreciative of those learning bumps. You know, Bruce and I, twin brothers, serial entrepreneurs. I mean, from hustling in the streets to cleaning companies to promoters to building an ecosystem, but it's really leveraging all of those skill sets. Like, you know, taking every part of the journey and figuring out how does this tool work with what I'm building now, and knowing when to pull it out, right? You know, so we started with Black Hack. Oh no, we didn't start with Black Hack. We started with Flix, which was our streaming platform. We were going to change the game and be the Black Netflix. Mind you, when we had our cleaning company before that, we bought into a franchise. So we understood the difference of standing up from scratch, and like Tia just mentioned, white labeling, being able to plug and play. There is an advantage of being able to plug into a system that's already built, and then building on top of that, or going into a system that already has the framework and then adding on top of that. And so we understood that with the franchise model of being able to buy into a brand, that shortcuts a lot of relationship building, time spent on trying to persuade and promote, because people already understand the value you bring. They already buy into it. So with that, we were doing that with our startup with Flix. I mean, people already understand streaming at that point. They already understand content. For us, we just couldn't find Black content. So our problem was just a personal problem. We couldn't find our Black content, and we were trying to build it in a platform. And we were finding systems that were already existing, and we were just going to aggregate those resources and put them together. The hardest part about that was building the relationships. In the startup space, they call it the chicken and the egg. You need a platform, you need money, you need content. How do you get all those things to happen at the same time? You need one to get the other. You can't get this one because you don't have that one first. So that's just a nonstop, chasing your tail. And so in that process, we were diversifying content. At that time, investors and networks and partners were telling us it's a niche, it's a niche. To some at first, it seemed offensive to just put it in a box and say it's a niche. But at the same time, it is being familiar with who you're talking to and knowing who you're talking to, right? And so we had to familiarize ourselves with who we're talking to. And then at the same process, we're starting to learn that we're building a tech business, but at the fundamentals of it is still building a business. And then so we had to go back to square one, understanding that we're building a business and learn the frameworks of building a business. We understood franchising and building a brand and leveraging that, but then also building something from scratch. So there was a lot of bumps and bruises in the beginning of us trying to get that startup off the ground, not having the resources and the tools. Essentially what we pivot to in Black Hack is what we did not have when we were trying to build Flix. So we saw that we were trying to build something that we could not build here just because it didn't align. Some of it was bias. Some of it was bias based on investors, networks, demographic, market. So it's knowing the true landscape of what you're pitching and who you're pitching to, whether it makes sense for them. You're trying to build a plumbing company and you're going to an electrical company for investment. That's not in their wheelhouse. It don't make sense. They only gonna do what they know. And so we had to learn that. And then, so now as building out a network, that's what we started to focus on, is making sure we're building resources and tools that the ecosystem already supports. And then now it's making sure the people that are in the ecosystem know the framework of how that works. We're starting to learn that now. We talk about lobbyists and how political things get. I mean, we were 3 sport athletes. We ran track. Jerry mentioned the 400. Bruce holds the 400 record at Marion Franklin High School in the South Side. So for some cats who don't run track, they might get out there thinking they're gonna run a 400 and they just use they all in the first 10 meters. You're done. You're gonna fall over. In business and entrepreneurs the same way. You got to pace yourself. You got to know when to kick in the jets, when to pace yourself, when to cut in. It's leveraging all of that. And for us being athletes, being competitive, we always looked at the competition and everybody's competition. And we learned to not make everything personal, try to remove the emotion and the ego. We've always manifested everything. Everything that we have today is because we saw it years ago. So we saw the long play. We always looked at the long play. We knew we were going to have to go through bullshit to get to it, but we knew it was going to hit. And everything that we have now is an overnight success 20 years later. But it's always been strategy from day one, always.
All right. Strategy. Now you said something. I had a friend who used to say 10-year overnight success, right? And people see things happen just like right now. There's a lot going on with Black Hack, Color Coded Labs, Venture Suite, Venture Combine, and 1921 Ventures to come up. And I know a lot of people are going to say it just popped up. They're going to think it just popped up because of 2020 and the civil unrest. But it's been years and years and years in the works. Just like every one of these panelists that are here today, this didn't just happen. They've been through it for years. So I appreciate you all sharing, and thank you, Brandon. So we're at that point, Joe, where we're getting ready for wrap up, right? So with that, what I would like you all to do is think about the fact that there are people who are going to watch this video, right? If there was, and y'all have already dropped so many gems, right? Just keep it real. But as you think about your wrap up, is there anything that you want to share? Or when you say, hey, I'm going to be on Columbus Black, I'm going to be on the show, I got to make sure I drop this message. I really want to make sure this gets out there. I want you to take a minute or two and just go. We're gonna go around, let y'all drop your message, and then I want people to know how to get in contact with you. If you could tie that in as well, in case they want to follow up, in case they want to support you, because everything we do is about support, right? And if anybody watches this and you have the ability to support one of these founders, you need to get on it. That's my challenge to you all. So with that being said, Rachel, we're gonna start with you. And once you go ahead and give us your kind of like your wrap up and how people can reach out to you.
Yeah, sure. So as a wrap up, and this might not sound, super profound, but know your financials, know your numbers. Don't spend $1 until you've actually studied how much does it cost to build your product. What does it actually cost? Here's my vision. Here's what I want to build. How much does it cost? How much does it cost to put it in the market? How much does it cost for someone to buy it? For me to spend time. If I had, and don't even consider yourself. Don't say, hey, my cousin, they could do it for 10. No, that's not how business works. What you gotta, the way you have to think about this is as if you didn't exist and you had to hire somebody to do it. How much would you have to pay them? And that tells you what your roadmap is. What do you have to get to? From a financial standpoint, how many sales do I have to do? So I think that before you do anything, understand your numbers. And if you're not willing to sit down and understand the financial portion of it, this isn't for you because you're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of people's time. So that's the first thing I would say. And you can, contact me, Rachel at Peerro. It's PEERRO.com. That's my email address. Peerro Angel, Instagram. So yeah, get in contact.
Outstanding. Listen, so this goes back to earlier, right? It's a situation where she couldn't tell you that if she hadn't learned, like, guess what? You could avoid a lot of headaches, and it really is the foundation. And I personally have learned that myself, right? So you need to understand those numbers and what it's going to take from a resource standpoint to do what it is you're thinking you want to do. That's the business side of it, all right? So moving on to Jerry. Jerry, same thing. Give us your wrap up, any tidbits you want to drop for anybody else that's watching this or anything they need to know, and then how they get in contact with you.
My last kind of, gem to drop is, when looking at what makes the BECOSYSTEM, as we're calling it today, is yes, it's Black and brown people, but also we have allies in this ecosystem as well too. And knowing that yes, you may hear about certain companies or certain whatever, stay away from them. Learn. That's something that I had to learn from watching other, my older peers who have been putting in this work, and learn from where they were getting slapped around from. And okay, I'm not going there, or I'm going into this situation with caution because I've heard X, Y, and Z about this company and how they deal with founders, that look like me. So I say that is because at first coming into this, even though, like I said, my first funding came from pretty much white ecosystems in resources. And I was very much pro, like, hey, I'm getting this funding from them, but I got to bring this in for us, black this, black that, where I was almost blacking myself out. Don't black yourself out. Know that we have allies there. Yes, the system is here. The ecosystem is here for cultural competence and collaboration. But also we have some good, allies that are here to, offer resources, capital, and other help in different forms. So just be open to, the folks who are truly and genuinely there to support you and formulate your own opinions and experiences with these companies, because just because someone had oops, you don't know that whole story or whatever that is going. Now, of course, if stuff is predatory or redundant, there is some truth that lies into that, and just proceed with caution. But I'll, to end it all, just the summary is just stay open-minded to the different opportunities that may come from, whether it's a Black person, all the way to, the white person that could be, potentially predatory.
All right. Thank you for dropping those gems. That comes from, once again, those experiences, How do people reach out to you, Jerry?
You can follow me on social media at JerryV513. Yes, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Always got to rep that. But you can follow me on all my social media handles are JerryV513, LinkedIn, Jerry Valentine. Follow the Renter Mentor platforms at Renter_Mentor at all social media platforms. We have LinkedIn as well, Renter Mentor, and then of course our website, www.rentermentor.net. So thank you, Kevin, again for this opportunity and this conversation.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. Tia, you coming up next. Word.
I would just say that be mindful of the character development that it takes to build a network of people that genuinely want to see you succeed. Really piggybacks on what Rachel and Brandon just talked about, appreciation and knowing your value, knowing the value of others. I would say I've gotten so much more out of what I've done for free than what I have charged for. And I'll be very honest about that. There is a time to charge. But if you're in this process where you are growing and you're experimenting, do not experiment with somebody's money. Let them know, hey, I'm not sure about this just yet, but I'm willing to learn. And just use that as your lesson to invest. It's so important to make sure that you are investing in people, especially if you want them to invest in you. It always comes back. I still do these sessions. I was just with a friend for breakfast. I worked on her resume. She edited my book. That's what we do as the ecosystem. We call them these little working sessions, and I do them with friends twice a month where we're each shifting and giving each other something to do for one another to move each other in those points of our processes where we're stuck. But you have to have a heart to give. You should never be asking for more of an investment than what you're willing to put into yourself. So be the first investor in yourself. You will never lose investing in your leadership skills. You will absolutely never lose. So keep educating yourself, keep growing, keep reading, keep learning, and continue to put out those good seeds out into the world, because they do come back in due time.
Wow. Powerful. That's right, y'all. That's why it's better to give than to receive. It's coming back to you anyway. So go ahead and plan them. Thank you so much, Tia. We appreciate having you on the show. And then how do people get in contact with you if they need your services at Ramey Marketing?
RameyMarketing.com, or you can just Google search Tia Ramey. I'm everywhere.
All right. Which we would expect, y'all. That's what she does. She does marketing. And by the way, just because we do marketing and advertising, I want to thank you also for trying to explain to people that there's a difference between the two. People do look at it as one, and they are definitely separate. They work together. So thank you for sharing that as well. And then Brandon, go ahead and bring it home for us as you go ahead and wrap up, and then make sure people know how to get in contact with you or the different businesses as well.
Yeah. I guess a couple last minute gems. One, believe in yourself. Make sure you believe in yourself. Don't let nobody else's thought process or perception take over what you already know about yourself, what you're capable of. Keep going. Like Tia said, give first. I mean, all of our sacrifices has been based on giving first. We're starting to cash in on some of those favors now. Social capital is real, so leverage it. You know, I always say every time I do something genuine for somebody else is a favor that I can ask for later. So I may not ask right away, but at some point I may need you. So I'm gonna do it. Have some integrity, move with some integrity, be authentic about yourself. You don't gotta be fake. I mean, it's enough real out here. As far as Black folks, I tell them all the time. I mean, Sandy Castro was at our very first event, 2016. She was on a panel. Somebody asked her about Black competition or Black people doing the same thing, and she said that there's enough poverty to go around. So for us, like I said, I mean, we have competitors, but there's no competition. I mean, there's enough people to tap in and tackle this issue. We can't solve it by ourselves, so we need more people. Me and Bruce were actually excited when we saw Black Tech 614, Keys to Black Wealth, and all the other Black groups starting to do events. We really got tired of doing the events by ourselves and being accountable for the only ones doing events. So now that there's more in the network, there's more resources out there for people to leverage. There's more relationships now being built outside of just our network, which we needed. And then there's more industries to tackle. I mean, Black Hack is hack everything. So that is everything. For us, if you want to reach out, blackhack.com, you can get to me and Bruce. If you got some money for me right now, you can call me on my cell. No, I'm joking. But yeah,
what? Oh, my bad. Dollar sign.
yeah, my Cash App is BLK Cash One.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, listen, Brandon, thank you for wrapping that up. I obviously have to jump in on the bandwagon on that one as well. As I thank all of our panelists for joining us, was really cool and unique, as well as you can see Brandon's backdrop, right? So that is actually in Color Coded Labs. That's the home of Color Coded Labs in the Genius Suite, which is housed out of Venture Suite, which is my backdrop, right? So this is the co-working space where we'll house all of the ventures, because Venture Suite is a suite of ventures, right? So really cool to be able to create this innovative place for Black and Brown founders and our community holistically to be able to come together, especially as we start to come out of COVID. So really excited for that. Now, what I'll tell you is that there are some questions in the chat. We did not get to those questions, but we will try, and I will ask the panelists that are on if they could go in, if there's a question that's relevant to yourself, or if somebody made a comment and you want to just chime in on that, would you please do that so that they would get that benefit of it as well? And then we're actually going to be sharing this through columbusblack.com. It'll be on our website. It'll be a YouTube version of this as well for those that are not on Facebook. So we'll be sharing that also. So I will ask everybody right now to do a couple of things. One, go to columbusblack.com, right? If you are not on our mailing list, I want you to subscribe to receive our newsletter. That way you don't miss out on anything like this going forward, right? Follow us on our social pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as well. That way, same thing, you can stay connected as we have amazing events and opportunities like this with amazing people, right? This doesn't happen without the people. The knowledge shared today doesn't happen without who you saw today, right? So I want to thank our panelists because you all are creating what is historic, right? We haven't had this platform to use it this way with this knowledge base around this ecosystem specifically, okay? So I appreciate you all sharing what you shared today, and hopefully it helps and changes somebody's life or trajectory. Now, with that being said, I almost forgot. So obviously I'm a startup founder as well, right? So I have a startup. It's called Mile. That's the card, right? So I want y'all to go to iOS or your Android Google Play Store and download Mile. Mile stands for Make Your Life Entertaining. That's where you find things to do, places to go, and food to eat. We are excited because we're about to launch our second version, right? So we've been in proof of concept, and volume 2 or version 2 is going to launch really soon. And we believe that you all are going to be pretty pleased. And what we're going to do is what Tia said. We're going to let the data and you all tell us what works. And then we're going to grow. We're going to iterate and grow. We're excited about that. So make sure you download the Mile app. And with that being said, I want to thank our sponsors. You heard the names before, but it is Venture Suite, Color Coded Labs, Venture Combine, 1921 Ventures, and of course, Black Hat. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up as I always do, right? In order to be more successful in your future, you need to understand a little bit more about your past. That's the reason why we just had this amazing